What is going on, y'all? Faiz Sports all back at it with another video, and it is prediction time. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys my official prediction for the Chicago Bears 53-man roster as training camp has officially begun. And before you know it, the season will be here. And obviously, we're going to need the Bears to cut the roster down to 53 players. So if you are new to the channel, hit that big red subscribe button. Make sure to follow me on all my social media platforms. As always, let's get into it. All right, so here we go. I know there's a lot here on the board, but hang in there with me. I'm going to go through every single one of these. So this is my official prediction for the Chicago Bears 53-man roster. Every single position, every single player. You can count it up. There's 53 people here. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start at the top here. And this side is the offense, and this side is the defense. And we'll start with the offense and work our way to the defense. So at the top here, I have Justin Fields, obviously, being the QB1, and behind him, Trevor Siemian as the QB2. I think the Bears will only carry two quarterbacks. Nathan Peterman technically is the third-string quarterback. Yeah, no thank you. I think we'll have two quarterbacks make the 53, Fields and Siemian. All right, moving on to running back. I have four running backs making the roster, and I think there's a good reason why. I've got David Montgomery, our starter, obviously, Khalil Herbert, backup, and then Darrington Evans, and then Tristan Ebner, the rookie running back. The reason I have all four, because you might be thinking, four running backs is a lot. Number one, it's a brutal position. Guys go down a lot at that position. We know that. So depth is important. But more importantly, every single one of these guys brings something different to the game. Monty's the bell cow, if you will. Herbert's the guy who, a little bit shiftier, stays close to the ground. Darrington Evans and Tristan Ebner bring that speed that these first two guys don't. So, there is versatility all across the board here. So I think all of them make the roster. Okay, I could be wrong on that one, but I'm going to stick by my guns on that. Let's go to the wide receiver room, okay? Darnell Mooney, obviously a lock to be the number one receiver. Behind him, Byron Pringle, who's also a lock. Velus Jones Jr., I think he's a lock as well. And now it gets tricky after those three guys. I went ahead and went with Equanimous St. Brown, a.k.a. ESB, Nikhil Harry, and Tajae Sharpe. So that basically means guys like Dante Pettis, they're out. David Moore, cut. Guys like that. Now, let me explain why. Equanimous St. Brown, we signed him in the offseason. I believe this is a guy who Luke Getsy, who's coming over from the Packers, who wants to give a chance. I think he's not a lock, but I think he's fairly certain to make the roster. Nikhil Harry, we just traded for him. I believe he's going to impress. And he's got a big chip on his shoulder. He wants to prove he belongs in the NFL. He really didn't get off to the right start with the Patriots. He's getting a fresh start with the Bears. I think he takes advantage, and he brings something to this team we lack, which is a big-bodied receiver that we can use in the red zone. So Nikhil Harry and then Tajae Sharpe, we're talking about a guy who you can just plug and play. He's a veteran, a savvy one at that. I think he makes the roster over a guy, like I said, like a David Moore, who got arrested in the offseason, and he's just a deep threat, if you will. So I'm going to go ahead and say Tajae Sharpe rounds out the wide receiver room. All right, let's move on to the tight end. Pretty much a lock here. Cole Kmet, Ryan Griffin, James O'Shaughnessy, all three of the guys, again, you might be thinking three tight ends is a lot, but all three of the guys bring something different to the table and gives you good depth at that position. I'm pretty happy with our tight end room, okay? Not much to talk about there. Let's go to the offensive line here. So our starters on the offensive line, I have Riley Reif, Cody Whitehair, Lucas Patrick, Michael Schofield, and Tevin Jenkins. Now, I think Jenkins wins that starting job, but the rest of these four pretty much locked, okay? Let's talk about the depth behind because, again, we know these guys will make the roster. Braxton Jones, been very impressive all throughout the summer. I think he's a lock to make the roster. He's our rookie that we drafted. Julian Davenport, look, I could see maybe a guy like, Doug Kramer that I don't have here making the roster, making it over him. It really depends on versatility at the position, who can move around the most. I have Davenport here, but if you want to say another name like a Jatar Carter or like I said, a Doug Kramer, if you will, sure, go ahead. Not going to fight you. Sam Musfer, I think he's pretty much a lock. He can play backup center for us. He can maybe switch over to the right guard position. I have Joe Thomas here. Excuse me, not Joe Thomas. Zachary Thomas. I wish we had Joe Thomas from the Cleveland Browns back in the day, but Zachary Thomas here, and then Larry Borum. So I feel like Borum, Braxton Jones, and Sam Mustipher pretty much locks here, and then these two are the spots where you're probably saying whoever is most versatile out of the rookies that we have, they probably make the team. So, but I feel really good about the rest of these guys. All right, so let's go ahead and move on here. And by the way, I'll kind of point out where I've got the guys that, that I thought were kind of on the bubble here, if you will. So maybe even like a Darrington Evans. But let's move on here to the defense, okay? The starters are locks, okay? Al-Qadim Muhammad, Kears Tonga, Justin Jones, Robert Quinn, Stone Cold locks, nothing to talk about. Let's talk about the depth behind him. Travis Gibson, lock. Angelo Blackson, I think he makes the roster. Mike Pennell, I think he makes the roster. And then Mario Edwards. So for the most part, I feel really good about our defensive line in terms of who I feel like makes this team. You know, we have a rookie in Dominique Robertson who could make it as well. So he's another guy. But for the most part, I feel pretty good about the room as well. So, again, not much to discuss there in terms of a guy who doesn't make it over a guy who does make it. Linebacker room, Matt Adams, Roquan Smith, Nicholas Morrow, Sam, Mike, and Will linebacker positions. Behind him, Jack Sanborn, undrafted rookie. I think he impressed. Caleb Johnson. And you got Thomas over here. So, like, I'm not a big fan of the linebacker room that we have, obviously, because Roquan, it's pretty much him and a bunch of guys who are just whatever. But for the most part, this is who I kind of have here making the team. Now, there's other guys, Albright, guys like that can probably challenge for the spot at the linebacker position. But, man, it's not a very strong position, honestly, outside of Roquan. All right, moving on to the cornerback room here. Got Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon, obviously, I think starting. And then Kendall Vildor, I think, makes the team. And then I've got Taewon Young and Thomas Graham Jr. here. I should have probably put another spot here for the nickel cornerback spot. I think those are the two nickel cornerback guys. I think Taewon Young starts and then Graham behind him. And then Greg Stroman here. Greg Stroman Jr. makes the team as well. So I got, 6 cornerbacks total. Safety spot, Eddie Jackson, Jaquan Brisker, locks, DeAndre Houston-Carson, very solid last year, Elijah Hicks, and then Dane Cruikshank. So 5 safety spots. And then special teams, we got Cairo Santos, our kicker, Gil, our punter we drafted, and then Patrick Scales, our long snapper here. I didn't put punt returner, kick returner, because it's going to be one of these guys here, right? We could have maybe a Velas Jones, a Christian Ebner, you know, some of these guys that could play special teams that already are on other positions, if you will. So there you have it, folks. Like I said, this is all 53. You can count it up. But I feel pretty good about this. So really, if you want to go ahead and review here, the points of contention here, this wide receiver, 5 to 6, this one, a little bit of a question mark. You're talking about, these 2 spots on the offensive line, the backup swing spots, if you will, the swing tackle spots, or excuse me, the swing guard spots could be up for grabs here. Defensive line, not much. Linebackers, maybe the backup linebackers. Those guys aren't locks, if you will. And the cornerback spot, feel pretty good. Safety spot, feel pretty good. This one, I feel pretty good. So there you have it, folks. My official 53-man roster prediction for the Bears. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment down below if you agree, disagree. As always, thanks for watching.